I'm sorry, I can't seem to find my seat. Could you help me? Nodding and smiling, Chloe told me.
That's not possible.
What?
There are only seats for family.
Confused by her words, I was taken aback. We are family, aren't we?
That's right, my family. The family I acknowledge.
What do you mean? As my confusion deepened, Chloe's smile grew, seemingly enjoying the situation.
You see, family supports each other. But Kate, you bring no added value, do you? You're just an ordinary housewife, aren't you?
Then why did you invite me? Had I known beforehand, I wouldn't have come here even if asked.
But surely we need someone to clear the dishes and bring more drinks, right?
Shall we go home?
Let's do that.
We were ready to leave in 3 minutes and headed for the entrance. Just then, the front door opened and someone appeared. I am Kate Johnson, a 55-year-old housewife. Recently, my only son, Thomas, got married. I was quite surprised when Thomas first introduced me to his girlfriend, Chloe. Because, in terms of both personality and appearance, she was the complete opposite of Thomas. Thinking back, Thomas has always been laid back and a bit slow. He's indifferent to clothes, appearance, and trends.
Hair should be easy to manage, and clothes should be durable and comfortable,
Thomas would say with a smile. Chloe, on the other hand, is 31, a year older than Thomas. She's bright and decisive, always wearing stylish, colorful clothes.
I always coordinate Thomas's outfits.
She said proudly. She must be confident in her taste. Honestly, the two of them, like night and day, didn't seem like a couple even when standing together. The reason they decided to get married was apparently because of a child. Just 2 months after being introduced to Chloe, it turned out she was pregnant.
You need to take responsibility.
Chloe had said nonchalantly when the pregnancy was discovered. These days, a marriage following a pregnancy isn't unusual. Neither my husband, David, nor I would criticize them. Which comes first, marriage or children? Honestly, the order doesn't really matter. As long as the couple and their child are happy, there's no problem. That's what David and I believed. However, what made us anxious was Chloe's attitude.
For the moving expenses to the new house, the deposit, and some living expenses for the time being, you should support us. That's your responsibility, right?
She demanded money from Thomas and us with those words. Certainly, pregnancy changes lives drastically, especially for women who bear a greater physical burden. And it's true that it incurs significant expenses. I could understand that logic. But still, it was hard to accept. Chloe's attitude was overly dramatic. Like she was the only victim, lashing out at us.
I wanted to work hard too. I was about to be promoted, but now, everything's gone.
During a visit to our home, Thomas and Chloe had a trivial argument. At that time, Chloe shouted at Thomas through tears. But she was set for a promotion, and now it's all been canceled because of the pregnancy. Hearing this, as a woman, I truly sympathized with her. Chloe, she was really working hard. From a mother's perspective, I even felt guilty. However, seeing me down, Thomas told me with a conflicted look.
But Chloe, she's been saying she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom even before the pregnancy. And right after we found out, she decided on her own to quit her job.
She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. When I asked, tilting my head, Thomas slowly nodded.
Yes, plus, her workplace had solid benefits, and they would have accommodated her during the pregnancy. Yet, she quit so quickly.
Maybe she felt too sick to continue. Maybe that's why she was upset. Everyone experiences pregnancy differently. Some have mild morning sickness, while others suffer severely. If she had to quit a job she was dedicated to because of that, it would indeed be unfortunate. To my question, Thomas silently bowed his head. Concerned about Thomas, I pressed for more details. It turned out the situation was more serious than I had thought. Chloe's behavior was baffling. If it was due to pregnancy-related illness, it's understandable. However, she had been going out to play since the day after she quit. And when she came home late at night, she would complain, "I'm tired." Thomas, not quite convinced but concerned for her, would ask about her condition. To which Chloe would answer suspiciously,
My condition. It can't be good. You're a man. You wouldn't understand how tough it is for a pregnant woman.
She also added,
And don't expect me to do any housework just because I'm home. It's absolutely impossible. I never know when I'll get sick. Well, women are always at a disadvantage.
On days she wasn't out, Chloe spent the whole time, from morning to night, just lounging on the sofa and playing with her smartphone. With such one-sided complaints, Pua Thomas couldn't muster a strong response and just ended up apologizing.
If I even slightly argue back, she throws a tantrum and starts screaming, so it's easiest to just go along with her.
Thomas told us, looking utterly drained. He hardly looked like a newlywed. Well, being pregnant can make you emotionally unstable and physically unsteady, I suppose. I had it easy, but morning sickness varies.
Right. Anyway, we'll help however we can.
All David and I could do was try to encourage an utterly exhausted Thomas. And so we fulfilled Chloe's wishes by covering the costs for the new home and related expenses. It might seem overly indulgent, but we hoped it might ease Chloe's mind a bit and soften her treatment of Thomas. But Chloe wasn't satisfied with just that. Perhaps having had a taste of it once, she developed a liking for it. She visited our house frequently, each time asking us for financial support.
I want to buy some baby items. Can you give me some money?
Chloe said this, extending her hand with her usual calm demeanor. Initially, we gave her money as she requested, but after so many visits, we started to become suspicious. Thomas had entrusted the management of his salary to Chloe. His earnings weren't bad at all. Even if Chloe wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, they should have had enough to live comfortably. Yet, why did she keep coming to us so often? Each time, she had plausible reasons like baby needs or medical expenses. But were we just being used by Chloe? That question crossed our minds. Moreover, lately, even when we helped, Chloe stopped even bothering to say thank you.
Enough is enough. Next time she asks, We'll refuse.
That sounds right. It was when David and I had discussed and decided on it. Incredibly, he had an accident. He survived, but was left with some paralysis and had to quit his job. Fortunately, we had some savings and some income from real estate. It was enough for David and me to live on. Let's just think of it as an early retirement and take it easy.
Yes, that's right.
David started rehabilitation, and we spent our days relaxing, just the two of us. After some time, we realized something. Since David retired, Chloe stopped coming to our house altogether. Maybe she thought we no longer had money because of his retirement. Or perhaps she feared being asked to help with caregiving. Chloe's blatant behavior left us with mixed feelings. But either way, it was convenient for us. It would be perfect if we could continue to maintain a good distance. If we had continued as Chloe wanted, we might have ended up bankrupt. That thought was relieving. Later, only Thomas kept visiting us regularly, and during those visits, he updated us about Chloe. A few months later, Thomas informed us that Chloe had safely given birth to a healthy baby boy. The baby's name is Jack. Chloe was admitted to a hospital just a few minutes' drive from our house. Filled with relief and joy, David and I were delighted.
That's wonderful. I can't wait to see our grandson. I'd go right now if I could.
Yes, but Chloe must be tired from giving birth, so we should ask first. Holding back our excitement, I contacted Chloe. Congratulations on your delivery. You really did great. Also, David and I would like to visit you in the hospital. When would be a good time for you? I sent the message and waited for her reply. But no matter how long I waited, there was no response from Chloe. After 1 day, 2 days, and 3 days of waiting, I couldn't wait any longer, so I called Thomas. Over the phone, Thomas hesitated and struggled to speak.
Chloe said, well, she doesn't want to meet anyone other than her own family.
What do you mean?
She's tired from giving birth and doesn't want to bother with others.
Apparently, by family, she meant her own blood relatives. In other words, she didn't want to let us, who are not blood related, meet the child. That's disappointing.
After she's discharged and some time has passed, we'll come over to see you. So, sorry about not during the hospital stay.
Thomas sounded apologetic. If I pushed the issue, it would only put Thomas, who was already caught in the middle, in a difficult position. I understand. We're looking forward to seeing you. Take care, all three of you. With that, I hung up the phone. Eventually, we were able to meet our grandchild about a month after the birth. Thomas brought his baby to our house. Chloe was at home resting from childcare, apparently.
He's adorable. I'm so glad we finally got to meet.
Babies are just mesmerizing. How's Chloe doing? Is she struggling with sleep because of the childcare fatigue?
No, I handle the nighttime duties, so it's okay. Chloe's just a bit unstable after the birth, so I thought she should rest today.
It seemed Thomas was in charge of feeding and soothing the baby at night. Despite having to work, my son was managing everything well. Must be tough. Are you okay?
I've gotten used to it, but cutting back on sleep is hard.
Upon asking more, it turns out Chloe didn't go to her parents' house for postpartum care, and her parents only came over on weekends. So after returning from work, Thomas would take care of the accumulated housework and let Chloe rest at night by taking over the child care. Looking at him, he seemed to have lost some weight. I thought she'd be with her parents after giving birth. Are you sure you're okay handling work, housework, and the nighttime baby care?
Honestly, it's tough, but Chloe doesn't want to rely on anyone other than me, so we can't really ask anyone for help.
I wanted to go to his house and help out at least with the housework, but that's probably something Chloe would dislike. Just make sure you don't overdo it, and please let us know if it ever gets too much.
Yay, thanks. That's why I'm sorry we can't let you see Jack more often.
It's sad not to see my grandson, but Thomas's and Chloe's well-being is more important. Don't worry about us. Just come over when things settle down. That'll be enough.
Yay, thank you.
We kept in touch with Thomas, but it seemed he was busy, and we rarely got to meet. Their house was just a 30-minute drive from ours. We could help any time if they asked, but if Chloe was against it, we couldn't ignore her feelings. And before we knew it, 3 months postpartum were about to pass. One day, unexpectedly, Chloe contacted our house herself. The matter was about celebrating Jack's baptism.
Jack is the first grandchild for both families, and my parents want to celebrate in a big way, so we'd love for all your relatives to come too.
All the relatives. I was pleased to be invited, but I hadn't expected such a grand celebration. As I was taken aback, Chloe seemed to sense something and added,
Don't think too much about it. Like, the doctor who came to our wedding, oh, and there was a lawyer too, right? It would be great if everyone could come.
She remembered the relatives not by their names or how they were related, but by their professions. All right, I'll reach out to them.
Thank you. We'll host this celebration, so please let me know the attendees' schedule as soon as you can.
I wasn't too keen, but if they were inviting their relatives, it would be rude not to do the same. I'd extend the invitation, and if they couldn't make it, then that couldn't be helped. I checked the wedding guest list and contacted the relatives.
To Jack's baptism.
Several relatives agreed to come to Jack's celebration. Then the day of the celebration arrived. After Jack's baptism at the church, we went to Thomas' house. None of Chloe's relatives had arrived yet, but the food and seating were already prepared. Thomas was not there. He had apparently gone out to buy some drinks that were needed. The table was laden with lavish dishes, and there were handmade place cards with names written neatly on them. In total, about 20 people from both families were expected today. It was a significant number. Tables were placed in the living and dining areas to fit everyone.
Please, everyone, take a seat at the place card with your name on it.
Prompted by Chloe, everyone slowly moved to their respective seats. Amidst this, David and I were confused.
Did you find it?
No, it's not here. David's place card was found quickly, but despite searching, my place card was nowhere to be found. Naturally, I expected it to be next to David's, but it wasn't. Perplexed, I decided to call over Chloe and ask, Chloe, could I have a moment?
Yes.
I can't seem to find my seat. Sorry, could you help me? Chloe nodded and then, with a cheerful smile, blurted out to me.
That's not possible.
What?
There are only seats for my family.
I froze, not understanding what she was saying. Family, what?
That's right. Only my family. The family I acknowledge.
Chloe was speaking matter-of-factly, but I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Was she talking about blood relations like before? But then, it wouldn't make sense for there to be seats for relatives. It seems only I was without a seat here. What do you mean? As my confusion deepened, Chloe seemed to relish it, her lips curling up slightly.
You see, family members support each other, right? I mean, there should be a mutual benefit.
Chloe then pulled out a guest list for today's event. It appeared to be handmade. She continued.
For instance, having a doctor means having someone to rely on in an emergency. Lawyers are the same. It's reassuring to have such people in the family.
It was by chance, but indeed, those gathered today were predominantly highly educated relatives.
In your case, Kate, what added value do you bring? You're just an ordinary housewife, aren't you?
Chloe sneered condescendingly, causing a surge of irritation within me. I see. So Chloe had prepared seats only for those she deemed beneficial to herself. Then why did you invite me? I asked, my voice trembling. Had I known beforehand, I wouldn't have come if asked.
Well, we need someone to clear the dishes and bring additional drinks, right?
In short, I was called in as a housemaid. How dare she mock me? Stunned by her audacity, I stood there when David, trembling next to me, asked Chloe.
What about me then? I'm retired, unemployed. I bring no benefits either.
Chloe waved her hands dismissively.
But David, you're wealthy, right? You have real estate income, and raising children costs money, which helps us.
Chloe's straightforward, unapologetic response sent a chill down my spine. The other relatives, who had been quietly listening, began to stand up and look at me. David took my hand, our eyes met, and he nodded slowly.
Let's go. We can't stay silent after being told such things.
The other relatives seemed to agree with David, nodding their heads. I sighed deeply and said, "Shall we go home?"
Let's do that.
All the relatives began to prepare for their return home.
What? Wait, what are you doing? I don't understand.
Chloe sputtered, clearly flustered as everyone prepared to leave. We were ready to leave in 3 minutes and headed for the entrance.
Wait a minute.
Chloe cried out, and suddenly, the front door swung open. Thomas had just come back.
What's going on here?
He asked, eyes wide in surprise. As I hesitated on how to explain, David glared at Chloe and told Thomas,
Your wife has insulted Kate terribly. We feel so awful that we're leaving now.
What?
Thomas was shocked. Then, he blurted out something even more shocking.
Wait, she's about to not be my wife anymore.
As everyone stood there dumbfounded, Chloe was the only one who raised her voice in alarm.
What are you talking about? What does that mean?
Thomas then thrust 2 pieces of paper at Chloe.
From today on, you and I are strangers. Let's get divorced.
Do you even know what you're saying?
Chloe screamed hysterically, snatching the papers from Thomas. She stared at them intensely, and her face quickly paled.
Thomas, what is this?
You can see, right? One is the divorce papers. The other is the DNA test result for Jack.
Why did you get a DNA test?
As Chloe trembled, the test results slipped from her hands. I quickly picked them up.
No, don't look at that.
From the current conversation between the couple, I had suspected, but the written result was unbelievable. Mismatch. Jack isn't Thomas's child.
Bingo. I've been desperately raising a child that Chloe had with another man I don't know.
Thomas was looking straight at Chloe. Chloe, trying to avoid his gaze, looked down and did not meet his eyes.
What are you talking about? Jack is Thomas's child.
Then is this DNA result a lie? Shall we test again? I'm willing to do it as many times as it takes. The result won't change though.
Chloe fell silent, then began to bite her nails fiercely. She then glared at Thomas.
So what? Does it really matter if we're blood related? It doesn't matter at all if you don't test.
Chloe retorted, her face turning red.
Are you being defiant now?
Muttered one of the relatives.
Shut up.
Chloe shouted back.
If it had been an adoption from the start, it'd be a different story. But this time, I was just deceived by you. I was deceived and unknowingly raising someone else's child. Don't joke that you don't care.
Thomas yelled, and both David and I were stunned. Chloe seemed shocked as well.
Don't say I'm cheating on you.
So it was serious. Makes sense. You've been seeing him every week after all.
Chloe's face, which had just flushed red, now drained of color again.
Did you know?
I just happened to see you.
He saw her walking arm in arm with another man. Initially, Thomas had convinced himself that the man was just her friend, but every time he and Chloe argued, that image haunted him and wouldn't leave.
It seems you were never really interested in me or Jack. That's why I got suspicious and hired a private investigator, and while at it, got a DNA test done too.
We hadn't been told, but it turns out the couple had been fighting. Moreover, most of the reasons were due to her selfishness and unreasonable demands. Despite being postpartum, she wanted to go stay overnight far away with friends, or she demanded money for her own leisure. For Chloe's entertainment, Thomas had taken several days off work to look after Jack.
At first, I felt grateful to her for having our child, and I thought I had to put up with it, but it just kept going on.
There's only so much paid leave one can take. At the very least, he wanted her to look after Jack during the weekdays. Or perhaps ask one of their parents for help. But Chloe completely refused that idea.
My parents aren't a daycare, you know? And I don't want Jack to get more attached to your parents than mine.
Thomas was forced into these unreasonable demands for such trivial reasons.
The results from the private investigator, you know them without me saying, right, she was openly having an affair.
Well, that's...
Chloe was visibly shaken. trying to come up with an excuse but couldn't find any words.
I'm definitely getting a divorce. I will also demand alimony from both you and your lover.
That's so unfair. Why both? Are you some kind of gold digger?
Of course, it's fair. Your lover knew you were married. And who's the real gold digger here? Do you know how much my parents have given you?
Indeed, we had provided quite a bit of financial support for the couple, and for the sake of the grandchild. Who would have guessed that the child wasn't even Thomas? Chloe clenched her teeth and glared at Thomas. Then, suddenly, she turned to me.
You understand, don't you, Kate?
Me. Caught off guard by her sudden plea, Chloe rushed over and took my hand.
It was just a moment of folly. And above all, think about the child. It's pitiful, isn't it? Please, convince Thomas. I think he'll listen to you.
In her desperation, she targeted me, perhaps thinking I was the easiest to manipulate here. From a distance, Chloe's parents, who were shrinking back, watched their daughter's desperate antics. What were they feeling, watching their daughter behave like this? At least I couldn't remain a bystander as they were. I guess Chloe is like this because she was raised by those parents.
It's our fault for making Jack unhappy.
Wait, that's not right.
What?
I denied Chloe, who tilted her head. You're the one making Jack unhappy, Chloe. Stop trying to make Thomas out to be your accomplice. To my own surprise, my voice came out colder and lower than I expected. Chloe, probably not expecting me to argue back. She froze in surprise.
But if we get divorced, that will make Jack unhappy.
The root of all this is you deceiving Thomas into marrying you, isn't it? Besides, you've dumped everything on Thomas after the birth, child care, housework, and work. And now you're using your child as a shield. It was clear she was trying to garner sympathy to keep Thomas from leaving. Neglecting her child, and only using him when convenient, was unforgivable.
That was, after the birth, my hormonal balance was.
Stop using hormonal balance as an excuse. It's insulting to me as a woman.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Though she had been assertive with Thomas, being unexpectedly challenged by me seemed to have crushed her spirit, and she fell silent. The room quieted down suddenly. At that moment, one of the relatives raised his hand. It was David's brother, Mark, a lawyer.
I think I've got the gist of the situation. How about we call it a day for now and set up a meeting later? From what I've heard, a smooth divorce seems unlikely, and there might be additional compensation for Kate and David.
He was probably referring to the money we had helped out with. Indeed, continuing the argument here would just be taking up more of the other relatives' time unnecessarily. Yes, that sounds good. I apologize for the inconvenience to everyone who came out here today. As I bowed my head, the other relatives reassured me with smiles, saying, "Don't worry about it." And to Chloe's parents, who had been silent up until now.
Yes.
Despite their seemingly polite and calm demeanor, perhaps they had mistaken indulgence for kindness. It was disturbing how they had stayed silent throughout Chloe's altercation with us, treating it as if it were none of their business. Their expression now seemed to say they hadn't expected to be called out. "We'll arrange a meeting later. This is about what your daughter has done. Don't pretend you don't know just because she's an adult. Please be there." Chloe's parents looked like they wanted to escape, but grudgingly nodded. A few days later, we gathered again. Mark had brought a lawyer he recommended. Despite what had happened, Chloe and her family hadn't really discussed anything since then. As a result, discussions about the divorce and alimony weren't progressing. That was to be expected. Chloe's parents were uninformed, so we had to go over everything again, which was both redundant and time-consuming. To make matters worse, perhaps like mother, like daughter, they were very stern about money and kept trying to negotiate down the alimony. Finally, out of frustration, I declared, "Then it seems we have no choice but to go to court." That finally got them to agree to the payment. Regarding Jack's custody, after much deliberation, it was decided to place him in a foster care facility. Thomas struggled until the end, seeming to have been trying to take custody of Jack. He experimented with different approaches to see if there was any way he could manage. However, over these past few months, handling household chores, parenting, and work, he apparently judged that he couldn't raise the child alone.
If I ever become too busy and get neurotic, I might start thinking, why am I doing this for someone who isn't even my own blood?
He shared with us last night, his eyes red from crying. After the discussion ended, David finally looked at Chloe.
There's something I need to say.
It was about me.
You said that Kate, being a stay-at-home mom, seemed worthless. But that's absolutely not true. It's because of Kate that I can dedicate myself to my work. And when it comes down to it, she's the most reliable one. Well, you must have realized that by now.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Chloe only said that much and apologized. After that, Chloe seemed remorseful at first, but she quickly forgot about it. She stopped making payments on the installment plan for the alimony. She probably thought she could get away with not paying, but there's no way that would be allowed. We had a lawyer step in to press the issue. We contacted Chloe's parents and changed the payments from installments to a lump sum.
I'll pay next time. I can possibly pay all at once.
Chloe apparently begged on them, but she couldn't be trusted. As a result, her parents had to sell their house. One of the reasons was for alimony, but the fact that Chloe and her lover had a loud fight in front of her parents' house, and the reason for her divorce became known around the neighborhood, was the final straw. Now they live in a small, old apartment, just the three of them. They look like refined and calm parents, but their fights were loud enough to be heard outside. By the way, the lover was also reluctant to pay the alimony, but seeing Chloe's parents selling their house and moving, he decided it was better to settle up quickly rather than dragging out the payments. The determination of our lawyer and seeing Chloe cornered made him reconsider prolonging the payments. I don't know what happened to Jack, but according to the folks at the foster care facility, he's still baby, and there's a high chance he'll find a foster family. I just hope he finds happiness. Thomas is still as calm as ever. Recently, he got a promotion at his work and is more motivated than ever. One change since that incident is that our relatives, feeling sympathetic, have been bringing him marriage proposals. They all mean well, but Thomas isn't interested in getting married anytime soon.
I want to be capable and financially stable enough to support a child on my own.
Thomas continues to strive for improvement every day. David and I go on trips regularly and enjoy our retirement leisurely. He still has some paralysis, but it's getting better thanks to rehabilitation. I've never really had any complaints about him, but what he said at that time made me really happy. I truly felt fortunate to have married him. If Thomas ever gets married again, I hope he and his partner support each other like us. I can't say this to him directly because it would just sound like doting, but I wish it in my heart.